Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult-Based Education, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar today, Google Forms and Sheets 101 for adult ed teachers and administrators. And I'm especially delighted to welcome Shanti, who's with Empira. They are a new vendor for us and a sponsor for adult education. So Shanti, I'm going to stop sharing my slides so that you can share yours.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on this meeting. And hi, everyone. I'm here from Texas and Dallas, Texas. So I know we thank you for your time, and we hope this is going to be useful for you today. Empira is a provider of solutions that help with collaboration and student success in adult education. And what we do is we provide a platform for taking adult education programs virtual. And that means all the aspects, both for students from creating an account, completing and signing forms, providing documentation, making appointments, and more. And the process is flexible, meaning it's not a fixed, you can make it configured to your needs. It's an efficient process. And for staff, it allows staff to be able to review and work with students virtually, have all of the information needed to get students enrolled. And it's a platform where you can communicate, collaborate, have the documentation, tracking, and more. Helps meets compliance requirements, streamlines and optimizes your process, and is the platform where all the data comes together. And with that, just wanted to show a quick, to bring it into context with what you're going to see today with the Google Docs, you're going to see one part of this data. So Google Docs will give you the forms, but there are other aspects, and using all these different pieces of the puzzle, it's important that we collect them all, and we will be talking a little bit more about this after the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. We appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. I also just wanted to take a quick little side note here and mention that our COABE journal is coming out shortly. It will focus on workforce, and it's created by and for teachers in adult education. We have some really exciting articles, and it's going to be available on Amazon Kindle. So that's really exciting, and we're going to be coming out with that very, very shortly. So just wanted to mention that. After the webinar, the reason we have this here is because often we get so many questions. Will I get my certificate of participation? Will there be slides and resources available? So I want you all to know, yes, when you attend this webinar, you will receive a certificate of participation within 24 hours of the webinar. Also, the slides, the resources, this webinar recording will all be available at adultresources@coab.org. So you can go right to that link, and I'll also put it there in the chat box in a moment. Our adult educator repository, it's free of charge to our members. So just wanted to let you know that. As well, you're probably aware that we've had many different webinars specifically targeted for providing training to help you navigate the challenges of COVID-19. We have a number of additional webinars coming up. I want to encourage you, as a member of COAB, they are free to you, thanks to sponsorship like Empira, who is providing sponsorship for this webinar. So hopefully you can join us for those. Last but not least, we have our presenter today. I'm going to read a little bit about Joey Lehrman. Joey is the Program Effectiveness Coordinator at Adult Education at Delgado Community College, where he has helped to develop and launch the first fully online adult education program in Louisiana. Wow. Over the past 6 years, the eLearn program has welcomed more than 1,000 new distance learning students. In 2017, they partnered with the Louisiana Community and Technical College to scale e-learning statewide, enabling students anywhere in Louisiana to enroll. In 2019, the eLearn project was recognized as COAB State Innovation of the Year winner. I remember that. Joey has a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University and is a Google certified educator and Google master presenter with 10 years of classroom experience, including 8 years in adult education. And I'll just mention here that Joey was one of our 6 certified trainers who went around the country rolling out our Google boot camps. So thank you so much, Joey, for that. You know, I don't think I have to say much more. Joey really brings to us a wealth of knowledge, and I'm very excited about today's presentation. So Joey, I'm turning it over to you. And as Joey is sharing his screen, I just want to encourage you all, you could chat in the chat box and put your questions in the Q&A. Hi, Joey.
Thank you, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? All set? Like Sharon said, my name is Joey Lerman, and I'm here to talk about Google Forms and Sheets. So I will get started now. Thank you all for joining. As Sharon mentioned, I'm a Google Level 1 and Level 2 certified educator. My primary role is in adult education at a community college based in New Orleans. And I will put this contact info up again later, because I think a big thing we can hopefully all do is connect after today so we can continue learning and growing together. So to kick it off, those of you that can open a new tab, maybe try the keyboard shortcut Control+T, open up a new tab and head over to bit.ly/hello-coab. You will notice that this is case sensitive. So the H should be capitalized, coab should be capitalized. So it's bit.ly/hello-coab, and we have a short warm-up activity. So I'm going to give everyone a minute. Again, maybe try that keyboard shortcut, Control+T, head over to bit.ly/hello-coab. And when you do, you should see a Google form that looks like this. So it's kind of a warm-up activity to explore Google Forms together and also get some back-end data that we can use throughout today's presentation to explore some of those features. So I'm going to give everyone a minute again to check out bit.ly/hello-coab, and I will drop this into the chat as well. The keyboard shortcut is Control-T. Good question. Okay, so what's pretty cool about Google Sheets and Google Forms is that we can get this kind of real-time data, and we can get this chart that kind of will adjust as people continue to submit their results. I also wanted to kick off with this question because this is obviously a unique and challenging time for us all, and I think one promising thing we should be doing with our students is just making space for us to kind of connect on the emotional level. How are things going in our lives? How are things going with our families? Obviously, this is a somewhat anxiety-inducing time for all of us. And so I think it's important in our live classes and in our Google Classroom sections and so forth that we just create space to check in and say, hello, I see you, how are you doing? And so I wanted to make sure we did that here because obviously, again, it's a challenging time. So I wanted to kick that off here and use that as an opportunity to share that strategy. While I have my screen shared in Chrome, we're going to be creating some forms and sheets today. So I want to show you two quick shortcuts. There will be many tips I shared throughout today. So that keyboard shortcut to create a new tab is Control-T. And if you open a new shortcut and type forms.new, it automatically creates a new form. So obviously on a computer, there's a lot of different ways to complete the same task. For example, we can go to Google Drive and click new, but this is a nice keyboard shortcut that actually works for any Google Drive file. So I can do sheets.new and create a new Google spreadsheet. I can similarly create docs.new and also slides.new. So that's one kind of time-saving shortcut as a quick opportunity to create new Google Drive files. And I'm going to remind everyone about that later on today. So here are the results live. We have, as you can see, every time you submit the form, it creates a new row. We have over 300 people that have jumped in. We can create a live word cloud with this and kind of see what's on everyone's mind. So I will continue updating everybody on the stats today. And again, that's Control-T as in tiger, Control-T. Good question for that new tab. Okay, so on our agenda for today, I'm going to talk very briefly about how I've structured today's presentation. My hope there is that you'll get a sense of how I think you can best connect with today's information. I'm going to then share 4 different use cases, so different ways that we can be using Google Forms and Google Sheets. And then lastly, we'll finish with an opportunity to stay in touch. So those of you that want to go to bit.ly sheets and forms, again, this is case sensitive. This is our kind of master resource hub today. So all of the resources and tutorials and links that I'll be sharing today are all hosted in this one Google Doc. Again, that's bit.ly/sheets and forms, and I'll pop that into the chat as well, sheets and forms. And so hopefully you can copy and paste that out of the chat and bring it over. Bit.ly/sheets and forms. And once again, all of our resources will be stored there today, including the slide deck. So with that, I want to make my screen full again and come back. Okay, so a bit about the structure of today's presentation. I want to talk through a few values that I'm using to guide this. So first of all, lifelong learning. I'm a big believer that we can all continue to grow as educators. So the focus of today is just to show what's possible with forms and sheets. But keep in mind that in order to kind of accomplish some of these tasks, we're going to have to continue learning after today. So I'm going to share a lot of resources that you can use to extend today's learning. Continuing on, we are all teachers, we are all students. I'm a big believer that in the 21st century, professional development is horizontal. None of us are really experts anymore because industries are changing so quickly. So I think the key is that we need to be ready to share and connect and learn from each other. Done is better than perfect. I'm guessing you might have noticed that there are so many resources available online. And it can be a bit overwhelming. How many websites to choose from, different apps and things like that. And so I also think it's important at some point, we just need to choose something and try it and see how it goes, and then be ready to reflect and improve over time. And so instead of spending all day just auditing YouTube video after YouTube video, choose one, share it with your students and see how it goes. And that's kind of today's presentation. It's a starting point to an ongoing conversation. The growth mindset can transform our ability to grow. And so those of you that are familiar, this term kind of speaks to the ability that we all have the capacity to learn and grow through mistakes. And lastly, I want to stress that when it comes to technology, it's never about the technology. It's always about how it can transform the learning. So when we're looking at Google Forms and Google Sheets and all these cool tips and tricks today, remember that when it comes to using technology in the classroom, it's not about the technology. It's about what the technology can do to improve learning and improve the student experience. So that's why I'm here today. I'm a very big believer that technology can increase access and the impact of the learning experiences that we create for our students. And so in looking around during the health pandemic right now, there's always a bit of maybe tech anxiety where like, I'm not good with technology and I'm anxious to try new things. But when I look around, I also see all of my peers in adult education doing their best to figure it out. And so I want us to all pause and just take a moment for a deep breath and realize good things are happening. We're still struggling to figure out how to support our students and the many barriers that they face. But I'm also noticing that things are going well and people are largely figuring it out. So I hope everyone's taking moments just to be positive and work through the fact that we're all figuring this out as a group. A few quick resources I want to highlight now because they are fantastic learning resources, and I will put this slide up again at the end. But when it comes to learning how to use these apps and different ways to use them to support learning and teaching, there's two Twitter handles I'm going to point your attention to for Google Forms, one great website for Google Sheets, and then kind of a hub of resources that can be used for both apps. So I'm going to come back to these again at the end. These are linked in the Google Doc as well, but these are fantastic resources for any question you have when it comes to how to use Google Forms and Google Sheets to really extend the learning and figure out how to use these apps well. Okay, last slide before we jump into the first use case. These are those tips and tricks I was talking about. So remember, you can create any new Google Drive file by going to sheets.new, forms.new, slides.new, and docs.new. Same thing is true of their subdomains. So sheets.google.com, forms.google.com, keep.google.com. Those are ways to quickly get to the app itself. And the last tip I'll share in kind of traveling around to the state adult education conferences where I hopefully met a lot of you. This was always the #1 digital literacy trick that I shared, was the ability to split screens. And this one is invaluable in the world of working with so many apps all day, the fact that we can work in multiple tabs at the same time. I think a lot of us are used to getting to a point that we have 100 tabs open. And so being able to split screens allows us to work in one app and move content between the other. Whether you are on a MacBook or a PC or a Chromebook, there are ways to split screens. And so I encourage everybody to Google how to split screens on your device. And this one is a pretty transformative digital skill that makes it much easier to work in multiple apps and switch between them at the same time. Okay, so to kick it off, I have 4 use cases I'm going to talk through today. They are at varying levels. Some of them are advanced tricks, some of them are intermediate, and some of them are beginner. My hope is that at least one of these is something that excites you, that you are able to kind of run with at the end of today. So the first is an automated practice test experience. And so the community college where I work is based in Louisiana. Louisiana is a high-set state. As a high-set state, there's a practice test that students can take. And I know it's similar with the GED, that when you finish the practice test, you get both a numerical score and a categorical score. So the numerical score is something like 8 out of 20. And then the category, as you can see, could be something like well prepared. When we were building our online program, one thing we noticed was that students were taking the TABE test, testing at a high level that said they were ready for the high set. But then they would go and take the math practice test or the reading or social studies and get 8 out of 20 and think, hey, 8 out of 20 isn't a good score. I'm not ready for the test. But as you can see, based on the scoring criteria, 8 out of 20 actually means well prepared. And so, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, our students sometimes struggle with confidence. And so here we had students that were coming in, testing well, doing well, but then losing confidence by taking the practice test. And that's worst case scenario. So many of our students are ready to test, but they don't believe it. And they were taking the practice test, and in doing so, learning that they might not be prepared or losing confidence along the way. And so we used Google Forms and Sheets to kind of invert that process a bit. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen is a Google form. This is a basic form that we built, and I'm going to show you how to do it in a minute, where students would essentially split their screens and have a Google form and a practice test. They would go through and click their answers and submit it. And instead of getting a numerical score like 8 out of 20, they would get an email, which you can see on screen. And it said, hey, thanks for taking the practice test. Based on your scores, we believe you are well prepared for the high set. So just using Google Forms and Google Sheets, we were able to automate a process in a way that essentially removed that numerical score and in place provided a categorical response. So what's cool about this, and I'm going to walk through the sheet and the form in a minute, is that all of the student responses get aggregated in a spreadsheet, which then means we as an academics team can then aggregate and analyze the quality of our curriculum. So I see the benefit of this use case as twofold. One, it allows the student to build confidence instead of lose confidence when they're taking the practice test. They take it on a Google form, they click submit, and then their results get automatically emailed to them in a way that says, hey, great job, we think you're well prepared, or we think this is what you need to work on next. Then the second benefit is administratively, we can aggregate our results and see, okay, look, 42% are getting question 1 wrong, but 81% are getting question 3 correct. What's the gap in our curriculum? What are we doing well? What do we need to improve upon? So we get this item level analysis. And all of this was built with Google Forms and Google Sheets using completely free apps. And so that's what I'm going to kind of walk through right now. So those of you that are in our shared document, you can see that there are over 90 of us in here, so it's going to get a little crazy in there. But here is that spreadsheet. So what we're looking at is the math form spreadsheet, and I can go directly into edit form. So Google Forms is great because it can be used for like a survey, which I'm going to show later on today, but it can also be used as a quiz. So if you click into this cog in the top right, I can select make this a quiz. And I make sure that the grade does not get released immediately. So then in coming through here, I click on each of these items and I select answer key. The answer to question 1 is B. The answer to question 2 is A. So as students submit the form, Google automatically grades it for us. And so there's nothing we need to do there except for input the answer key into the Google form itself. Then all the responses come over to a spreadsheet, which you can also see on screen here. I've submitted a bunch of random responses here just to give everyone a sample of what this looks like. I want to note that everyone has access to the spreadsheet, so you can continue to play around with this after today. So as you can see here, all of the responses get aggregated. So if a student says, hey, I want to know my numerical score, we're going to definitely give it to them. We just want to help shape that initial reaction to help them build that confidence. We can then also use this to do some direct tutoring after the student takes a test. So we can send these results to the student, send it to their teacher or their coach, and then they can one by one work through that information together. All the way on the right, you can see where the merge happens. And the merge is when a PDF automatically gets emailed out. So this is using an add-on called Autocrat, which I'm going to walk through very briefly here. Those of you that may be feeling a bit overwhelmed right now, I want to pause and say, of all the features I'm going to show today, this one is the most advanced. I just wanted to start with what I think is one of the more exciting uses of Google Forms to show what's possible, and then we'll kind of dial it back from there. So this is an Autocrat free extension. So if you just Google Autocrat and you head over to the G Suite Marketplace, this is something you can install for free directly into your Google Sheet. And it's very straightforward. So clicking into this, it's going to take a minute to load. I give it a name. I give it a template, which you can see here. This is the template that gets emailed out to everyone. It's a basic Google Doc that says, hey, thanks for taking the HiSET. Here's the response you got for this test. And you can see it's put in brackets. That's how the form knows what to send out. And then it gives me this visual interface that allows me to say, wherever you see subject, map that to the field that says subject, which you can see in the Google spreadsheet now. Wherever you see category, map that to category. So all of this kind of loops on top of itself. And what's great about the technology here is this definitely took several hours to build, but now that it's built, we can scale it up very quickly, which means that it can now serve and does support thousands of students that take this test regularly. So that is use case number one. I encourage everyone to come into our shared doc where you can see examples and links to Autocrat so you can learn how to get started with that feature. Okay, so the first use case was that automated practice test. I'm gonna kind of open for questions at the end, so feel free to pop it into the question and answer. And any questions that we don't have time to answer today, I'm gonna follow up with a Google Doc and I'll just write out responses to all of those questions. So continuing on, I wanna show use case number 2, and this is one that you could more follow along with if you want. So remember that shortcut to create a new file, it is forms.new. So like I said, that first kind of tour was more advanced. This is kind of dialing it back to how do we get started using with Google Forms. So just a quick visual tour. Anytime I explore a new app, I'm sure to just click around and see what tabs I have, what options I have. It's a great way to learn technology. I find that adult learners are often very anxious with technology. They're nervous they're going to break the computer and they don't want to try. We have to help model that technology mindset, which means when I'm in a new app, sometimes the best way to learn about it is literally just to click on everything. And we need to help our students see that they're not going to break the computer. We can just click around and see what happens. There's always the undo button. There's always the back button. There's always ways to kind of fix any mistake that we made. So those of you that want to follow along with this activity, I encourage you to open a new tab and type forms.new, and that should bring you to a brand new blank screen like this, where you can get started. So what we're going to look at here is how to create a lesson in Google Forms that branches based on topics or levels or whatever kind of choose your own adventure you want to set up in the form itself. So this is going to be a very basic version, and then I'll show you a template that you can use to really kind of extend the learning after today. So we're going to call this Choose Your Own Adventure Lesson, kind of like those old books from kids' books from, I don't know, before now, where you could choose your own adventure through the story. We can set up a Google form to do the same. So I type the title in the top, and notice I can click the second, and then here's my first question. On the drop-down menu, I can actually choose from different question types. So if I want students to reply with text, or if I want it to be a linear scale on 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, or if I want it to be a date or a multiple choice grid. These are the different options we get with Google Forms to create a survey or a quiz or an intake form for those of us that want to build an online registration system. So we'll create this first question, and it's going to be a multiple choice question. It says, which topic do you want to explore today? Let's imagine this is maybe a social studies topic. So I'll say the Industrial Revolution, or I will say the Great Depression. Remember, just a very basic lesson to show us what's possible with Google Forms. Notice in the top right screen, there's this preview eye icon. Anytime I click that icon, I can get a quick preview of what the form looks like. So I use this regularly when I'm creating forms as a way to kind of visualize what it looks like and to make sure it's accessible for students and staff. So which topic do you want to explore today? It's a multiple choice text box. Good to go. So I'm going to go back to the form. Now, on the right, we have these menu of options. I can add a question. I can import questions. I can add a title and description or an image or a video. So that's where the exploration is important. If you spend time just looking around on screen, it shows all the different things that we can do and gives us an opportunity to see the potential. So I'm going to create a new section and call this one the Industrial Revolution. To start the lesson, I want students to watch a video. So on the right-hand side, I have this Add Video button, and it brings up a YouTube video search. Those of you that are familiar, I'm a very big fan of the Crash Course series on YouTube. If you're not familiar, head over to YouTube and check it out. These are short, well-edited, and very engaging videos on an amazing amount of different topics. So I'm going to search Crash Course Industrial Revolution. I'm doing that search from the select video page, and I see here's a video, the Industrial Revolution Crash Course. History of Science, I'll choose this one. If I were actually writing today's lesson, I would certainly spend time auditing the video, watching it myself first, so I can anticipate where students might have good discussions and things like that. But for the sake of today, I'm just choosing a random video. Once it's in, I can give it a title that says, watch this video to start the lesson. I think it looks nicer if we center it, so I can center that. And then I can also click it to make it larger, which I think goes a long way to making this lesson a little more accessible for students when it's not such a small screen. If I go back to the preview, I can now see what that looks like. I'm going to skip this first page, and now we can see an example. Watch this video to start the lesson, and that YouTube video is embedded directly into the Google form. So we're off to a good start. Now that students have watched the video, I want to add another question. I'm going to say, share a summary of the 3 to 5 main points from the video. Since I want them to write a response, this is better as a paragraph, but those of you that were watching closely may have noticed that it automatically changed from a multiple choice question to a paragraph response. That's a cool feature using Google's artificial intelligence. It tries to guess what question type you want. My experience, it's very accurate, but it sometimes makes a mistake. So be sure to keep an eye on what question type you're using. I can then duplicate this question if I want, and I'm going to say, what questions do you still have after watching the video? Great. So we've got these questions. We can preview it again to look at what it looks like. We've got the video. We've got the 2 questions. We've got space for students to reply. Awesome. So we're off to a good start, but we still don't have a form that branches. Right now, it's still linear. Students are still going to go from one page to the next. I'm going to quickly create the second sequence, which is on the Great Depression. Once again, I want to add a video. And this time I'm going to search for Crash Course Great Depression. Does the search. I find the video I'm looking for. I'll do the same thing where I center it and make it much larger. And notice that at this point, I'm going to ask the same question. So one nice feature in Forms is that I can duplicate this question and then drag it down. So as an editor goes, it's a visual drag and drop editor. So just by duplicating and then dragging, I can reorder. So testing that preview again, we've got that first page. Which topic do you want to explore today? The Industrial Revolution, then the Great Depression. But now I want to make it branch. And this is where Google Forms allows us to add logic so the form can go in the direction that we want it to go. So coming up to this first question, in this menu bar in the bottom right, I can add a description, choose something that you are interested in. I can also go to section based on answer. And that's where it brings up what you see here, which are these extra menu dialog boxes that now allows me to say, if a student says they want to study the Industrial Revolution, go to the Industrial Revolution. If a student wants to focus on the Great Depression, go to section 3 on the Great Depression. This is going to be required, meaning students have to answer the question before they can reply or before they can move on. So now if I go to that preview page, you'll notice that it's added this red asterisk. So I have to answer this. If I select the Industrial Revolution, it takes me to the Industrial Revolution. If I want to go to the Great Depression, it takes me to the Great Depression. And so once again, the way to do that is by choosing the menu bar at the bottom right and saying, go to section based on answer. In doing that, I can then create 10 different options if I want. So maybe I'm creating a TABE study and resource guide, and I can have different resources based on E, M, D, and A on the TABE. I've been in adult education for a decade, and I forgot which sections they are. I could do this in a math lesson, so students can differentiate based on interest or skill level or goals. So Google Forms makes it pretty easy to create questions and different types of questions, and then to also branch if I want. Once people start to reply, they will aggregate in the responses tab or in a Google spreadsheet. So those of you that are curious about the choose your own adventure, remember that lifelong learning, Google is our best friend. Just Google the phrase, Google Form, choose your own adventure. And you'll see here that there are a suite of resources from educators, from Google, YouTube videos for those of you that like to watch, or blogs that you might want to read. What's nice about some of these pages is that there are great templates. So scrolling on this page, I can see Choose Your Own Adventure template outline. If I click it, it automatically makes a copy for me. And I already now have a template. Excuse me, that's the wrong one. I now have a template that makes it easy for me to drag and drop. Click the wrong link again. Here's a sample one, and then the template is here. So I encourage you all to Google around and notice that I clicked the wrong link there. The point is kind of working through it and being ready to stumble through those mistakes and learn from them. So Google Forms, very cool way to choose your own adventure as you work your way through a lesson, and great opportunity, especially for students that may be a little less digitally literate. Google Forms or Google Docs and slides can be overwhelming, but as you see here, This is very straightforward. It's clear where to click, it's clear how to type, and it may be a little easier for your lower level digitally literate students. So use case number 2 is the Choose Your Adventure Google form. Number 3 is kind of twofold. I'm going to open up one here. Some of our programs might not have online intake forms, and so I wanted to show an example of what an intake form could look here, once again created entirely in Google Forms. Briefly coming back, sharing a quick part of our program history. Like Sharon mentioned, we started a fully online program for adult learners in 2014. When we started that program, we didn't tell any of our staff about that we were offering an online program. We didn't do any outreach. We just kind of published this very small link on our website that you can see here. And just by doing that, we received over 500 applications in under a month. The point that I want to share here is that technology goes a long way to increasing access. We didn't do any outreach, and somehow 500 different students learned about our program, even though we just had very small information, a very small link on our website. So I think what's cool about this story is that students spend time online. They are texting with friends and family. They are sharing links on YouTube and so forth. So the point here is that if you don't have an online registration system, that's okay. This is a great way to at least capture interest. So create a simple Google form that says name, phone, email, what type of classes do you want to take, and publish it on your social media accounts or publish it on your college's website if you are housed at a college. You might be surprised at how well this increases access, because some students will be overwhelmed about showing up in person or making a phone call, but it's much easier to submit a form online. Maybe not for all students, but for some. And so I wanted to share that brief story because A, we were just amazed at how many students even found it, and B, just to show that students are spending time online, sharing links on YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook and so forth. And so this is a sample intake form. I've got a copy of it in the Google Doc that you can make a copy of. I will show you in preview form what it looks like. We split ours into sections, kind of like that lesson we just looked at. I think when opening a link and seeing a really long form is a bit overwhelming. And so splitting up, kind of chunking it into sections, I think makes it a bit more accessible. So we have pages where students can choose first name and last name. They can type in birthday, and I'll just kind of roll through these quickly. New Orleans, zip. Ask them to share a Gmail email. Last grade completed. How they heard about it, when they want to take classes, have you been enrolled before, if you're employed. So we don't have to look at the whole form because it's linked in that resource hub. Just wanted to share that Google Forms can be used to create this intake page, which you could publish online, and as a way to, even if it's not your formal intake process, you're still going to have them do paperwork and stuff when they come to campus. This is a great way for program staff to capture interest. So your administrative team or your coaching team can then reach out and say, hey, we noticed you submitted a form online. We're so excited for you to join our program. Here are the next steps. What's kind of cool is you could also set that up to do it automatically. So you could create a Google form where students fill out their information and then they automatically get an email that says, welcome to our program. Here are your next steps. And so doing that, in my opinion, really changes our role as administrators. Instead of just kind of moving spreadsheets around and going back and forth with our different data systems, the technology is doing a lot of that communication, and then we can adapt to be coaches and better support our students through that intake process. The second sample I want to show here is a class survey, and I see a lot of people popping into the chat. It's really good feedback. I have a tendency to talk fast, so I appreciate everybody letting me know. It'd be helpful to slow down. I also wanted to note that the structure of today's presentation is really just to show what's possible because there's so many great resources online already to kind of continue this learning on your own, that I wanted to put visions out there of what can be done with Google Forms and Google Sheets. So then you can, after today, go watch tutorials on videos or go take a class on Google's Teacher Center. And I'm going to show those resources in a minute. So I appreciate the feedback. I'm going to do my best to slow down a little bit, but also note that the structure is to see what's possible and then continue that learning after today. So here's a sample form that we use to capture feedback from our students. So at the end of every class or at the end of their orientation process, we publish this Google form, which allows them to let us know, hey, who is your teacher? Did you enjoy the class? Did you feel it helped you build your reading and writing skills? What was most effective about the class? What ways could the class improve? Describe it in one word. You know, it's a short survey. We email it out to students or they take it in classrooms at the end of the class. And then all of that data aggregates on the back, which is kind of a sample of what I have here. This element of our online program was transformative. When we started that eLearn model, the tension was low. As you've all seen now, distance learning is challenging. When we started to survey students, we saw a significant increase in retention. And I think that makes sense. Being able to give students voice and help them kind of co-create the program is essential. A phrase we use a lot is, we're only successful if you're successful. And I think that goes a long way to say, hey, we need to hear from you. Is this class great? Was it terrible? How do you like the coaching experience? Do you feel like you have a positive relationship with your coach? Their direct feedback is useful for us because then we can learn quickly and adapt our curriculum or adapt our program resources or change our orientation. And so Google Forms, as you can see here, makes it easy for us to capture that data and then give students voice in the process of writing classes or whatever topic we're trying to get feedback on. So seeing what that looks like live is here. And so that's kind of the third use case for today, which is, wow, Google Forms can be used to quickly create surveys that draw students in and help them have ownership over our program. So we're not building this in silos based on what we think. We're using student feedback to make our classes and make our program stronger. Okay, one more use case before I open it up for a Q&A, and then also show us a few of those ongoing learning resources. Excuse me, I've got 19 tabs open now. Okay. So the last resource I want to show is dedicated specifically on Google Sheets. You can see that dashboard here again, and it is linked in our resource hub. Notice the conditional formatting, which is a nice feature that allows us to visually see who's done what. I want to show an example of what I call a retention dashboard. This is a way that we can kind of target our outreach to make sure that students are having a positive experience. As I'm sure all of you know, students fall offline or they stop attending classes for various reasons. So I have two tabs here that those of you that are in the spreadsheet can see. It's on screen now. The first is student contact information. These are all fake student names. I actually just Googled fake names and it brought up this website where I could copy and paste a bunch of fake names. And then I also have this attendance data. So this one is probably more of an intermediate skill. So I'll try to slow it down a bit. But let's say I have this roster of students. This roster of students has attendance, as you can see, weeks 1 through 3 here. And I have the student contact information here. What I want to do at this point is make it easy for my coaches. I'm an administrator now, I don't teach anymore. I want to make it easy for my coaches to see how they should spend their time. Who should they reach out to? How do we target outreach to make sure students that need support are getting it? So the first thing I'm going to do is insert a new tab and start a sum formula. All formulas start with equals sum, and then all the values to the right. So I can see here that this student has 1 total hour over the 3 weeks. Using this autofill, I can drag and drop that formula down. So now I can see how many hours every student has over the last few weeks. I can create a filter and freeze the top row. So now the row stays frozen even if I scroll down. That was also a drag, drop, scroll down. And then since I have this filter, it gives me this menu to allow me to sort. I can sort from Z to A, which means greatest to least, or A to Z. So now I can see here, who are the students that have attended class the least over the last few weeks. If I want to add conditional formatting, I can highlight all of these and right click and conditional format. If the cell is, let's say, equal to 0, let's color it red. So now I get that visual cue of how many students, and maybe I can see some patterns. The extension of this now is sometimes in our databases or even just in our spreadsheets, I have contact information in one tab, and then I have the attendance data in another. And so of all the skills I'm showing, I will note ahead of time, this is probably the most advanced, but it's okay. Remember that we can learn these skills, we can build new things. And so what we do here is called a VLOOKUP. That's the key term you want to Google. And this one took a while for me to kind of figure out, but now that I've learned how it's used, I use it constantly. So I want to look for this student's name in the student contact page. And I want to return the 8th column. Again, that's going to seem weird, but like I said, this is the most advanced trick we're looking at today. And just like that, it pulls over that student's contact information. So again, I know that that was probably overwhelming, but in dragging and dropping this down, I can now send this over to my coaches and see that, hey, these are the students, these are their hours over the past few weeks. Now let's target outreach this week and start by talking with the students that have attended class the least. I can also insert another column, and this is a new feature Google launched maybe 6 months ago. I can insert a checkbox, drag that and drop that down, and say, hey, can you check this box to let me know when you contacted that student? You can also add a notes field. Tried calling, no answer. We'll be back this week. Work schedule changed. So this isn't exactly a content management system or a resource management system, but we can use a spreadsheet to kind of create this dashboard in a way that brings together data from multiple spreadsheets and then allows us to maybe ship it to our coaches so they can have a dashboard to start working through what they're on. So that was 4 use cases. I appreciate everybody's patience as we kind of raced through these. But again, the key of today was to see what was possible. So I want to talk through a few resources and then I'll open it up for a Q&A. All of these slides are available. This document is something that you can definitely make a copy of. It's probably set up right now so you can't make a copy, but I will change that feature in a minute. I know it's crazy in here right now, so I'm going to set this up so you can make a copy and use it in a way that is useful for you and your staff. So a couple of resources I want to talk through. First of all, those of you that are specifically interested in using Google Sheets, I highly recommend the Collins School of Data. All of these spreadsheet skills, whether the automated practice test or that VLOOKUP, are things that I didn't know how to do maybe 2 years ago. And then I took this one free class called Advanced Formulas in Google Sheets. And to me, it taught me pretty much everything I just showed you. So check out this advanced formula sheet. You can enroll in it for free, and it brings up a variety of great topics. I cannot shout out Ben Collins enough. He has transformed my learning with Google Sheets. The second is called SheetsCon. This was a free live conference that took place about a month ago, in which there were speakers on a range of topics that talked about Google Sheets, you can still watch all of the replays. These were 2 days full of sessions on all things Google Sheets and Google Forms. So check that out. Continuing on, 2 resources from Google. Those of you that might not be familiar with the Applied Digital Skills curriculum, these are free video-based lessons with a library that continues to grow. What I really like about this website, and I'm sure this will resonate with you, is there's so many websites that we go to that are like, oh, K-12, or oh, higher education. But this one has an adult learners filter. And that one is always exciting to see to me because I've been a career adult educator. But also you can filter by digital tool. So if you want to learn about forms, you can tick forms, and here's the lesson, how to create quizzes in Google Forms, or sheets, and you can filter by sheets as well. So I encourage everyone to check out the Applied Digital Skills. And lastly, the Certified Educator Level 1 and 2. So if you click on Educator Level 1, the entire idea is you can get free training and certified in a way that says, hey, I know how to use Google tools in the classroom. So if you want to take a much deeper dive into Google Classroom or Google Docs or Google Sheets or Google Forms, check out this free training because it is filled with every topic you can imagine, whether it's how to bring meetings online, how to bring students' work online, how to build interactive lessons like those choose your own adventure lessons. On the forms front, I follow both Alice Keeler and Jake Miller on Twitter. These two have their own websites where you can get a tutorial on pretty much anything you can imagine Google Forms. I will say that they are very much dedicated towards K-12. But with that said, when it comes to using Google Forms and Google Sheets, you can use all their resources just to kind of build those skills. So those are those resources here. I do want to pop over to the question board for a minute to see what topics are on everyone's mind. With that, I'm going to put this website back on screen, this one, because this is where you can find the document that's got all of our resources. So I see a lot of questions about, hey, where's that resource doc? Where's that resource doc? Every link I talked about today is inside of this doc. So I encourage you to check it out. Yes, I will change the sharing privileges so you can make a copy. And while I'm doing that, you can see the URL at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat as well and take a minute to check out the questions to see if there's anything I can answer live. And I'm just going to start at the top. And those of you that ask questions on the discussion board that don't get answered right now, I know we only have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to put them all into a Google Doc, and then COABE will send these out as a resource extension after today. So bit.ly, sheets and forms, and here is my contact information. Please reach out. I would love to connect after today. But my hope again is that you've been inspired a little bit to take one thing and run with it. Watch this webinar over again, get in the habit of Googling and looking around. And I'm going to check out the questions now. So question number 1, how do you access paragraph form? So on the drop-down menu, short answer, and then paragraph is right here. When it comes to getting responses back to students, that's a bit more complicated. I'm going to have to answer that one in the Google Doc. Keyboard shortcut is Control-T or Command-T on a Mac. That's good. The forms. Is there a way to be notified that someone completed a form? Yes, that extension is built in. It's called Form Notifier. So on a Google form, when someone submits, you can, it's an add-on, excuse me, form notifications. I open it up. And so every time someone submits, I can configure this so it sends me an email. Notify on me, and I want it to send me an email, or I can have it send it to the student as well. So those of you that have an intake form, I would say, this is great. You can get a notice every time that a student registers for your program. What are subdomains? Subdomains are the address that comes before a website. So mail.google.com or keep.google.com. I see someone asked, what is keep.google.com? I encourage you to just go check it out. Getting to Google Docs or any of those domains is docs.new or forms.new or sheets.new. Split screens inside of Zoom, you'd have to come out of full screen mode and then you can split screens with your apps. Drive for desktop allows you to sync your Google Drive, which means that all of your files that exist in the cloud can also exist locally. Where can we learn about splitting screens? I encourage you to Google it. So just say how to split screen on PC or on a Mac or on a Chromebook. Can Google Forms be made translatable to any language through Google Translate? I'm not sure if it can be done automatically, but you could obviously use Google Translate to do the translations and then translate it over and copy and paste that into your presentation or into your form. Once we get links for the presentation, how long do we have access to them? That's a Sharon question, but I think forever, I'm not totally sure. Does Google Sheets do formulas as well as Excel? I will say that Google Sheets is a simplified version of Excel, which I actually like. Excel is amazingly powerful, but it has features that we never need to use. It's why I like the Google Suite a little better, but they're very similar and a lot of the formulas use similar processes. I'll pause on the Q&A for a minute so Sharon can answer the question about how long they have access.
Right, you will have access as long as they're available for us. So we will save them in our adult educator repository, and that's where there'll be that information will be housed.
Thank you, Sharon. We have 3 minutes left, so continuing on with the questions. Do you put the whole practice quiz into the form, or are you just doing problem, number, and answer? We just do problem, number, and answer to keep it simple. So then they split their screen with a PDF of the practice test on the right and the Google form on the left. We use the free versions of the practice tests that are publicly available online. And so since they're publicly available, we're not using this as an official practice test. We're using this as a confidence building exercise for students.
And Joey, we're going to pause right here because we have 87 more questions to go, and they keep
cool.
coming in. So
sweet. Thank you for pausing.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody for submitting your questions, and Joey's been gracious and said that he will look at these after and he'll be happy to answer your questions. We'll be sending them out tomorrow. But I wanted to also give Shanti the opportunity. Shanti, did you have some final words as the sponsor that you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I did. So you've all seen, Joey, could you stop sharing and I could share?
Definitely. Cool.
Awesome. So, so you've seen what technology can do. You've seen the power of Google Forms, and of course it helps educators, and it is free, and use all those resources. But what if you want to take it to the next level? With OneFlow, it helps adult education programs to go virtual. So what we mean by that is, you've seen just forms, but in reality, adult education has a lot of other data pieces. And these are different pieces of the puzzle, such as the assessments, the communications, the notes, what programs are enrolled in, courses, goals, barriers. Yes, we can collect all, we can collect the forms, but to do more, you've got to have all of that data integrated together. And that's what OneFlow does. It makes it easier for students to engage, keep you compliant, help your staff work virtually, and in this day and age, like completely taking it automated. So I look at data collection and in stages of maturity. So first is collecting data digitally, integrating all the different types of data into one platform is the next stage, streamlining and optimizing is the next, and making your data work for you. So what we do is enable you to go through all the stages or just jump to stage 4. So it can take you to enable you to do things like when this happens, do that. So you saw a simple example is when the form is completed, email. But what happens if you want to, put out an event? What happens if you want to combine different types of data, such as when someone misses attendance on a course, notify a staff member? So we can take all of those actions and take this to the next level for your entire adult education process and running your entire programs and optimizing it so that you can manage your registrations of online courses. You can fill your classes more in an optimum fashion. So OneFlow does a lot more. If you want to find out more, engage with us and let us help you take your programs virtual. We'd love to help you and connect with you. You can reach us in any of these ways. myoneflow.com is our website. We're doing a webinar with our customers on May 20th. Look for some more information. Call us, follow us on Twitter, find out more, but we'd love to help you take advantage of technology to serve your students better and make them more successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. We appreciate that. And Joey, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us. And thank you to the more than 800 participants that we had here with us during this last hour. Thank you, everybody. We'll be in touch. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.